Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night, depending on where you are in the world. I am doing what I said I was going to do. I'm going to be doing more live streams on the channel, as well as putting up the old videos from Speaker's Corner. And so old videos will go up sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, going forward, and then new videos will appear on a Monday or a Friday or both. Peace be your digs, peace be your Silver Legion. And I wanted to do a reaction video to Joe Rogan, who is a commentator, an ex MMA fighter from America, who has a huge following, who apparently has trashed the Christian faith. I haven't actually watched the video, so this is a genuine reaction, but I have noted that other apologists that I know and have spoke with and even had on my channel, like Vocab Malone, have been doing responses to Joe Rogan, and so I thought I would throw my mix into it. There's no pre-prepared notes. It is a completely genuine reaction to a video that I haven't fully seen. So just to let you know, if you guys enjoy what you watch, then please do like, subscribe, and share. My channel's been shadow banned, so essentially it isn't growing as much as it should do. So please do like, subscribe, and share there, because I'm up against the algorithms at the moment for YouTube. Not just me alone; it's anyone who's not pushing a progressive agenda. And then if you would like to support the kind of work that you see me doing and help me to become an evangelist working amongst London's Muslims and supporting the church in dealing with the challenge of Islam, then do please use one of the two links in the description box to support me that way. So now, I am no technical expert, and when I've tried to do these things in the past, I've usually ended up messing it up. So let's see if I get this right. We want that one. Yes. Share tab audio. We want that one as well. Share tab audio. Yes. Okay. Right. We don't want it on. Let's have a look. How's that looking? That is looking good. Right then. So I will be doing my responses ad lib. Let me just grab a pen and a piece of paper to note down the kind of stuff that he says. Let's see what the man's got to say for himself. Bear with us 1 minute. Okay, so without further, let me just arrange that picture so it's better for you guys. So if I put that like that, how does that look for you? Could be better. Let's make it full screen. How's that looking now for you? Brilliant. All right, guys, are we ready to begin? Let's see what he's got to say, and we'll respond to it as I feel necessary, I guess. Let's get into it.
I know evolution's the wrong word for there, but as it improves and it...
Let's just do a quick sound check. Could you guys hear that? Was the sound coming through? Could people put a 1 for yes if they could hear it? Just wait for someone to reply in the chat to tell me you could hear the audio. It may be an old video, Armor of God, but he has a massive following, so things that he says do impact people's perceptions, and it's still floating around on YouTube. So, right, you can hear it, so we'll play it from the beginning, and we'll start again.
I know evolution's the wrong word for that, but as it improves and expands, we are no longer accepting the idea of Satan. Like culturally, Satan was an accepted thing hundreds of years ago. It was parallel. Like if you looked at the mentions of Satan and the mentions of God, they were right up there together. You're blaming Satan on the bad things and you're praising God for the good things. That's no longer the case. Now we just cling to these absurd.
Wait, Joe. Just how much research has this guy actually done on that claim? He's made a claim that in the past Christians would mention the devil as much as they mention God. Has anyone done a word study on sort of medieval texts or early Enlightenment texts to see if that's true? Because I guarantee that was just a load of baloney right there. So obviously, I'm not speaking to. I'm not going to be reacting. I can tell I'm not going to be reacting to the sharpest tool in the box. This guy's, I suspect, just going to be coming out with a load of cliches, a load of catchphrases, and probably no academic study or learning whatsoever. He said that we're dropping it culturally. Who's the we, Joe? We Christians aren't dropping it. We Christians believe in it. Who's the we? You and the village idiots? Like, come on, bro. What are we saying? Let's try this again. Let's see what else he's got to say.
Notions of this one that's watching us all the time, and you've got to sort of peripherally mention it and casually reference it without going into detail, and you're allowed to do that because it makes people think, well, you're on the same page as me. You're a God-fearing Christian man like myself.
I don't know why when he tries to imitate a Christian, he slips into a southern states kind of American accent. Could this be that Joe Rogan is peddling stereotypes and dealing in characterizations? Probably. Is he going to be called out for that by the progressives? Definitely not. Is he going to apologize for that? Probably not. But he's clearly dealing with some idea of Christians being Southern hicks, like. It's just the hypocrisy. The YouTube would pull and sanction people for dealing in stereotypes of other groups, but yet with Joe Rogan, it's okay if he does it for Christians. And yeah, I think maybe he's sort of criticizing a civil religion as part of some wider critique. Let's see how he develops his gibberish.
A God-fearing Christian man myself as well. God bless you. God bless you as well. But if you go, Satan.
Sorry, why is blessing people funny? What's wrong with that, moron?
Is looking out for you. Satan is watching you right now. Satan is just letting the air out of your tires. Like, you go, well, that guy's a fucking idiot.
Right.
Like we've moved past Satan.
Yeah.
But
No, we haven't moved past Satan. Actually, what has happened is that Satan has gained traction in our culture and in our society. And he's gained traction in our culture and our society because he is the father of lies, and our society have increasingly believed his lies. And his greatest lie is the one that you're peddling right now, which is that he doesn't exist. Dear me, just stating what are cultural norms as if these cultural norms translate into actual facts is a fallacy from the beginning to the end. There were cultural norms in the past that we Christians are guilty of, where we believe that people were witches, and we punish them for it. That didn't mean that they were actually witches. just because culturally we've become atheistic doesn't mean that there isn't a God or that there isn't the supernatural. I guess when you've got a platform like that, Joe, it's really easy to trot out the catchphrases, mate. But I wonder how well you would do if you would be willing to step into the intellectual ring and defend any of these baloney positions.
We haven't moved past God.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Or the idea of God. Even I mean, if there is some,
clearly he's never read Nietzsche, because Nietzsche would obviously disagree with him completely. But hey ho, I don't think reading's Joe's strong point.
All-knowing entity that is controlling everything and is filled with love and has a grand plan for the universe, they have yet to show themselves. So this is all just a concept and an idea with no basis in fact. And as we
no basis in fact, I think Christ is a fact. I think the person of the Lord Jesus Christ is a fact. I don't know many historical figures, historical figures, not my apologies. I don't know many historians who are concerned with antiquity that would argue that Jesus was a myth. And Jesus certainly claimed to be God. He certainly claimed to be divine. And we have good reasons we're going to come on to with regards to the resurrection. Because this is when I was checking to see if I'd got the right clip, I'd sort of skipped through it to make sure he was talking about Christianity, and I caught that a little bit on what he said there. So we'll be talking about that for sure. But yes, if Christ is who he claimed to be, and he does claim to be God, then we can say God has truly revealed himself. And obviously the whole of Christ's claims rest upon the question of the resurrection. So let's see what else he's got to say.
Have found more facts about the nature of reality and the world itself, it seems more and more preposterous with every day. Every day that scientists come up with these new equations that show the way the universe could have possibly been formed, and every day that these fucking guys at the CERN laboratory, the Large Hadron Collider, are discovering these what were at one time theoretical particles, showing them to be true and their calculations to be correct. We have a deeper and deeper understanding of the universe. But
okay, so I'll let him finish this point, because he was using all of that as an evidence to something. Let's see what he actually says.
We think now, we love to think that right now that we're filled with knowledge, and we love to look at ourselves now and look at the past as well. They didn't know back then, but we know now. But if we looked in the past, they would have the same ideas. Exactly. They would look back at those poor monkey people with the bananas, and they go, those fucking dummies, they didn't even know houses yet. We will one day look back at 2015 like, what a bunch of fools, what a bunch of ridiculous people that were still, they had this incredibly complicated society and this wonderful access to information, but yet they were still shackled down by ideology and killing each other over religion.
Okay, so, I mean, he's just going on to some rambling discourse. I thought he was actually going to make an intelligent point there, but he doesn't. He just builds up into this crescendo and then jumps onto a completely different topic. Maybe he'll link the two things up together. But I mean, I think there is an assumption amongst lots of people that somehow science contradicts the Christian faith, and it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And there are many Christians who are scientists, and many Christians have been involved in the scientific project. It was a Catholic priest who proposed the theory of the Big Bang. It was, I mean, there's countless examples. I've not come with a list of the different kinds of examples of Christians working in science, but any little bit of research would demonstrate the fact that Christians have been quite able to be Christian and work in science. I know personally, I know geneticists, physicists, and mathematicians who are Christians and doing real science. So, there's people I know who are advising the government with regards to the ozone and questions with regards to global warming, and they're fully Christian and they're doing real science for the government, Joe. So, but there is this kind of myth in society that science is somehow replacing the Christian faith, that somehow the more we learn about the world, the less we need Christianity. And it's utter rubbish. Let's be clear about what the scientific project is, Joe. The scientific project is describing the mechanics of the physical world. That is it. That is all that it is doing. It is not doing anything else. It has nothing to say about meaning. It has nothing to say about values, and it has nothing to say about purpose. These questions are beyond the abilities of science. And so to sort of suggest that somehow because of our scientific knowledge, as it seemed that you're going to make, that somehow our scientific knowledge means that religious belief is stupid because we look at how intelligent we are in understanding the world, but we're still killing people because of ideology, just demonstrates a grotesque ignorance about what the scientific project is. I think you should stick to the ring, and I think you should stick to asking questions. I don't think you should try to pass commentary on the project of science. Furthermore, I think you're about to do another blunder, another slip of the foot in the ring, and that is, I suspect you're about to suggest that all religions teach the same and do the same, because you're talking about how the future will look at us being stuck in the past, killing one another because of ideology. The reality is, Joe, and this is a reality whether you want to accept it in your idealistic daydream or not, is that ideologies conflict, ideologies differ, ideologies have different values, different purposes, different end goals, different means of achieving goals. And the reality is that they will always be in friction. You cannot have a frictionless world unless absolutely everybody thinks in exactly the same way. And that's not going to happen. And that, my friend, is an expression of human sin. That is the human nature, that it is to be selfish, to be self-seeking, to be self-assertive, to be self-serving. And that is the root of our conflict, whether we're fighting over religions or atheistic ideologies. We will fight because we are human. It's in our nature to do so. We do it at a personal level, we do it at a societal level. And this is one of the evidences to the Christian story, to the Christian way of explaining things, which is that human sin is broken and self-seeking, and we can't fix ourselves. So all you're about to do is point out to a list of evidences that prove an essential point about what Christians believe. Well, I'm guessing you are. Let's see if you just ramble on and change subject randomly.
And ancient superstitions that dictated their behaviors. Like, what a weird time to be in.
Ancient superstitions that dictate their behaviors. And what do you think they're going to have in the future? I promise you, Joe, the church will still be here long after you're forgotten, mate. Long after both our YouTube channels are a thing of the past, the church will still be here. The church has survived the Roman Empire. It survived the barbarian kingdoms. It survived the Islamic caliphates. It survived the emergence of the imperial empires. It survived Napoleon. It's going to survive the nation state and the international confederacies of things and federations like the European Union. Long after all of these things are gone, the church will still be here. So, let's have a look at what you've got to say, because that was just fantasy. You've got this fantasy about how history is going to develop. You think that as science is going to progress, and as it progresses, it's going to solve all of our problems. No, it won't, because the fundamental problem at the human heart is selfishness, and the true answer to that is the love of God.
they'll look at. They'll look at us now in 2015. They'll say, "What a strange time! This adolescent period of enlightenment, where they're still
Right.
they're still concentrating on stupid shit, and the fucking president of the United States can openly talk about God,
Right.
and no one goes, what is God? What are you saying? Like,
Yeah.
what do you?"
What's wrong with the president of the United States? I'm guessing he's bashing Trump, because I saw in one of the comments that that it's an old video. So I'm guessing he's bashing Trump here. But what the hell? So what? I've got no problem with Trump talking about God. What's wrong with that? I mean, is Joe's idea of a perfect world that the United States president can't talk about his beliefs? Is that what he wants? Or does he think that because of science, we're all going to outgrow the idea of God and we're going to have state atheism? How did that work out in communist Russia, Joe? 20 million dead. How did that work out in China with the Cultural Revolution? Millions, tens of millions dead. I don't even know what number. I think it was 60. I'm not even sure. What about how did that work out in Vietnam or Cambodia? Like, atheism does not solve the problem. All atheism does is make man his own God, and when man becomes his own God, he is unhindered by any restraint at all. And that's one of the reasons why we need God in public discourse, to remind us that there is an authority higher than the Senate, that there's an authority higher than the president, that there is an authority higher than the parliament, and that these institutions and these officers must answer to an authority higher than themselves. If they see themselves as the highest authority, just look at the mass murder that they have done, and they are doing. Abortion, perfect example. The greatest killing of human beings there's ever been, probably trumping the Islamic massacre in India now, in terms of the numbers of dead. So I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss the idea of God in public office.
Saying, do you think Jesus came back from the dead? What do you think? Do you think someone walked on water? Do you believe?
Yes, and yes.
The literal translation.
Yeah.
Are you an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? Well, it's the New Testament.
Both.
No, well, the New Testament was made by Constantine, who was a fucking Roman.
Oh my God! Did you just say that? Sorry. Oh dear, Joe, what have you done, bro? I think you've just like demonstrated how utterly thick you are. The New Testament was made by Constantine? Are you kidding me? Like, if you are a Joe Rogan fan, at this point, I would invite you to spend all of 30 minutes researching the origins of the New Testament. And what you will discover is that Joe Rogan is speaking utter bullshit. This guy is a clown. He's obviously an intelligent man. He's a YouTube giant. He was probably successful in the ring, though I have no idea. I'm guessing he was. But when it comes to this topic, I am telling you, if you are a Joe Rogan fan, this guy is an idiot on this topic. He does not know what he's talking about. Like, firstly, if memory serves me correct, like I say, I didn't come with any sort of preparatory notes for this response video. This is a genuine response video. But the canon of the New Testament was not fully formed at the time of Constantine. And if I remember correctly, and I'm open to being corrected, the canon that was used at the time of Constantine was 22 books, not 27 at this point, because the formation of the canon had not yet been complete. Now, I'm open to being corrected on that. Like I say, I'm just putting, I'm just sort of like reacting in the moment. But one thing that absolutely did not happen is that Constantine put the New Testament together. Joe, you're an idiot. Irenaeus and Ignatius, who lived before Constantine, were quoting the books of the New Testament, or the books that became the New Testament, before Constantine was even in diapers, mate. Like, seriously. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. and Constantine called the Council of Nicaea. One assumes, I'm guessing, that you're going to go on to say that that at the Council of Nicaea he put the New Testament together. If you are going to say that, it's going to be tragic. But let's see what you've got to say. But for those of you that are interested in some facts, the formation of the New Testament was a process that concluded at the Council of Carthage, I think in, gosh, I want to say 410. Like I say, I've got no notes. I'm literally responding off the top of my head. I think it's 410. I've got another number jumping around in my head, 480, but I think that's too late. I think it's 410. Council of Carthage was kind of like the formal sort of end of the process of canonization, of which Constantine played no part, Joe. Zero, nada, none. Anyway, let's see what he says. But yeah, guys, if you're a Joe Rogan fan, you need to email Joe Rogan and tell him to stop trying to talk history of religion, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, go and speak to someone who's actually bothered to get a degree on the topic.
Emperor who wasn't even Christian. He didn't even believe it. He was
excuse me, he's a saint, you clown. Of course he believed it. He was a saint so much that he called a council in 325 so that the church could be in peace. He was baptized before he died. His mother was a Christian. He claimed, and we believe, that he received a divine vision from Christ himself at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, that he received a sign and a symbol by which he would conquer. And he fought a war to stop the persecution of the Eastern Emperor against the Christians. Like, no one's claiming that he's perfect. We know that no emperor of Rome was perfect by our standards. He granted Christianity toleration in the empire. So I think you've got to evidence some of these statements you're making. Prove to me that he didn't even believe it, please. Like, or just stop talking shite, bro, because that is what you're doing right now.
He became a Christian on his fucking deathbed. Like,
that was normal at the time, you moron. Everybody got baptized towards the end of their life, not at the beginning. Getting baptized at the beginning was something that developed later. You just don't know. And this is the problem, is you've got one or two facts in isolation, but you haven't actually bothered to understand what's going off in the culture.
That's when he became a Christian. Like, all these people that
are
like really into the New Testament, and like, I'll talk about Old Testament shit and people get mad at me on Twitter. They'll send me this fucking hate text. You understand, motherfucker, what the difference is between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Wait, everybody listen. Professor Joe Rogan is about to tell us what the difference is between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, my betting money is that he's going to fluff this, but we'll see. I mean, he might be right. Let's see what he says.
Because the New Testament is utter horseshit.
Okay. Apparently, that's the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, is that it's utter horseshit. Very, very knowledgeable there, Joe. I like what a winning argument. Like, honestly, mate. Stick to the ring. Stick to doing interviews where you don't have to posit ideas, or continue to interview people that won't challenge you on the crap that you're talking. What kind of argument that is? That the New Testament is utter horseshit? Does that mean that Christ didn't exist? Because I would challenge you, Joe, that he did. And that means that when it talks about Christ's life and Christ being a real person, that bit's not horseshit. It was Christ known as a miracle worker. Well, even Roman and Jewish sources say that Jesus was known as a miracle worker. So the New Testament isn't talking horseshit when it talks about that. Was Christ crucified? Well, again, Jewish and Roman sources say that Christ was crucified. So the New Testament isn't talking horseshit when it talks about that. I mean, just how many things does the New Testament have to get right, Joe, before it stops being horseshit and actually becomes history? Do you know? It's all well and good throwing out a comment, oh, it's horseshit. He didn't say it like that. He said it like a fighter, didn't he? You know, it's horseshit. But like, just saying that proves nothing. And I challenge all of you Joe Rogan fans, go away, look into the historical accuracy of the writing of Luke, for instance. How many historical personages and facts and cities and places he gets right. That have been backed up by archaeological discoveries. You know, it's not utter horseshit. It's talking about real events. Was the church not a thing? Did it not grow? Is the Book of Acts utter horseshit? Was Paul writing to non-existent Christians and giving them theological and pastoral teaching? Or he was? Oh, well, in that case, that's not horseshit then, is it, mate? Like, what precisely about it is horseshit? Seriously, this guy is got a bit of a bloated ego, I think.
Created by a bishop and a fucking emperor.
Oh dear. Like, if you are a Joe Rogan fan, go and fact check him on that comment that the New Testament was created by an emperor and a bishop. And my simple questions to you, if you're a Joe Rogan fan, tell me which emperor and tell me which bishop. Because the only one that is spewing out horseshit right now is Joe Rogan. The New Testament was written by multiple authors at different times and in different places. Most of it was very well known in the church. Certainly the four Gospels were right from the get-go. Up to the 22 books basically were well known within the church almost straight away. The remainder, their lineage became interrupted because of the persecutions that the Romans were doing against Christians, in which they were telling Christians to hand over their copies of the New Testament to be destroyed, and if they refused, they would kill the Christians. You know, these people died for that faith. So all of you liberal progressive Christians that are covering up crosses not to offend people should probably hold your head down in shame. But yeah, Joe, like, honestly, what you're talking about right now is bullshit, mate. You're calling the New Testament bullshit, but you're actually speaking verbal diarrhea. You are having a mouth fart. Like, stop. Stop before you embarrass yourself any further.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. Right then. You've all heard him, Joe Rogan fans. He said that it is a fact that the New Testament was put together by an emperor and a bishop. So prove it. Put it in the comment section. Show me your evidence. Show me your facts, please. I challenge you, Joe Rogan. I challenge you to debate the origins of the New Testament with me. Not that he will. He'll never even see this video. But, you know, a guy can dream. But like, I challenge you to debate with me the origins of the New Testament, because it isn't a fact what you've just said. What you have just said is utter bullshit. Sorry to throw your words back at you, but that's the fact. That is the fact.
Established religious fact. Like, everyone knows where it came from.
Who's everybody, Joe? Who's everybody? You and your other mates who fight in clubs, and who's this everybody? Like, anyone with a brain will tell you you're wrong. I'm absolutely bemused at the arrogance and the ignorance that go together in such an alarming rate.
And not only that, it was written hundreds of years after the death of Jesus.
Hundreds of years after the death of Jesus. Right. Again, everyone who's a Joe Rogan fan, okay, go away and research that claim that the New Testament was written hundreds of years after the death of Jesus. Any scholar worth his salt, I'll give you some. Dr. Daniel Brubaker, Dr. James White, Dr. Bart Ehrman, Dr. Bruce Metzger. They all agree that the entirety of the New Testament was probably complete by 90 AD. So not hundreds of years later, is it, Joe? Clown. Like, this guy is a muppet. He's just parroting off the kind of the kind of urban myths that surround the Christian faith, and he's repeating them as facts. And if you're a Joe Rogan fan, I feel who just takes him at his every word, then I feel sorry for you, because he's misleading you. He's misleading you through making statements that you yourselves can disprove if you will spend all but an hour doing some research. That's all it would take to disprove his claim that the New Testament was written hundreds of years after the life of Jesus. Paul wrote his first epistles within 10 years of Jesus's life. 10. Some argue 5. That doesn't sound like hundreds. You're literally wrong by a factor of 10, Joe. That is how bad you are at this. Stick to fighting, mate.
So what are you talking about? Because if you're talking about the old,
talking about all the facts you don't know about,
old stuff, you got to go deep. What? Go to the dead.
Like you didn't so much as do a single Google search. Like, where's the deepness of your learning, mate?
Sea Scrolls. Go to the.
Oh dear. Oh gosh, this is painful. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of writings from a apocalyptic Jewish community around the 1st century that cover that are copies of the Old Testament and also copies of the community's own writings and their own teachings and their own beliefs. That is what the Dead Sea Scrolls are. What relevance does it have to just say, look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, to the reality and the truth claims of the New Testament? None. Like, this guy is just like, I don't know, maybe he had too much coffee before he did this show, like, or maybe he was high on drugs or something. Like, I have no idea what, other than the fact that he just didn't even bother to look into anything. That he's looking at some blog that one of his mates wrote. The Dead Sea Scrolls actually uphold not only that we have the Old Testament in a reliable form, but that the Christian reading in terms of the Septuagint is closer to the original Hebrew than the Masoretic text that is used by Jews today. So yeah, Joe, let's see how he finishes this point. Sorry, I went off on one there.
Go to the most ridiculous aspects of that and tell me, you basing your life on that?
No, we Christians aren't we Christians aren't that community. We Christians are a different community. In fact, I don't know of any community that claims heritage to the apocalyptic community that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm trying to remember the name. Like I say, maybe I should do notes for the next time I do a response video. What they're called now? They're not Ebionites. Anyone remember in the chat what the group is from that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? I know they're an apocalyptic community. Not Ebionites, definitely not that. What's the name I'm looking for? Maybe it'll come up. Either way, he's just throwing words out now. I don't even know if he knows what he's saying. He's trying to somehow suggest that they're Essenes. Thank you very much, Jose. No one's claiming heritage from the Essene community. What are you doing? You're just chucking out catchphrases now, mate. It's like, when have Christians said that they come from the Essenes? Why even make that comment? And I think this is a fallacy that I was getting to, that I suspected that he was going to make, which is that he just tars every religion with the same brush, and he assumes that every religion teaches the same, and every religion does the same, and every religion is the same. Though I'd be interested to see since the Essene community was an Old Testament community, and he seemed to have some higher view of the Old Testament, how his logic will play out there. But at this point, it's clear that he's just rambling on like a guy who's 2 steps away from dementia.
Because that's even more preposterous. They found them in clay pots in Qumran, written on animal skins.
Well done, Joe. Well done. You can state some facts.
People thought the world was flat and the sun was 17 miles away.
No, they didn't, you arsehole. Oh, my gosh. This is one of the urban myths that grinds me the most. Like, the ancient Greeks knew that the world was round. They had already demonstrated it mathematically. No one believed that the earth was flat, certainly at the time of antiquity. They just didn't, or if they did, they would be the peasants who didn't even write anything down. But the ancient Greeks knew that the world was round. All the way through European history, we knew that the world was round. The flat earth society is a modern thing, and it comes out of science. It comes out of a point in the development of science in which scientific theory advanced to the point that it was no longer connected to directly observable inquiry. So the theories had moved beyond that point where an individual could do direct observable science. And a whole school of scientific thought, remember, this is at the very beginning, the very birth of the scientific project, a whole school of scientific approach developed, which was that the only real science was the science you could do by direct personal observation. And that's why flat earthers go, well, have you seen whether the earth is round? Have you been into space? How does the world look? And that's why they talk like that, because they're following this philosophy of science. It's a modernist project, the Flat Earth Society, and it has nothing to do with religion. There are, of course, reactionaries in the Christian faith at the emergence of the scientific paradigm that also reacted to scientific discoveries. But the idea that he's projecting this onto the ancient past, I'm defending the ancient past, pagan, Jewish, and Christian. Like, this guy is an ignoramus. And if you're a Joe Rogan fan, you need to see that for what it is, because that is another ignorant statement in a spiel full of ignorant statements. Stick to fighting, Joe. Maybe I should call this maybe I'll rename the video "Stick to Fighting, Joe."
And we're gonna. They did. They really did.
And like this guy is either just as ignorant or he's a ballless cook who don't call out Joe on his bullshit.
And we're gonna. This is how we're gonna live our lives. This is it.
Can you please tell me who's arguing that we should live out our lives with the belief that the earth is flat? Like, no one takes the Flat Earth Society seriously. So please, what are you doing? You've just made these random connections to justify your own pig ignorance about Christians and the Christian faith.
This is all the facts we need. Fuck the Large Hadron Collider. Fuck CERN, fuck Stephen Hawking, fuck quantum physics, fuck Neil deGrasse Tyson, fuck those dudes with their telescopes. No,
you mean like the Christian Copernicus and the Christian Galileo and the Christian who came up with the Big Bang Theory and countless other Christians who contributed to the project of science. Your cartoonish dichotomy, Joe, demonstrates that you're a simpleton on this topic. Like, you are actually a simpleton when it comes to talking about this topic. So stick to fighting, Joe.
Base it on leather skins and charcoal ink.
Right.
Like, really?
Again, a false dichotomy, mate. Christians, at least the knowledgeable ones, don't attempt to use the Bible as a scientific textbook. We draw from the scripture that which feeds the human soul, the inspiration that gives our life meaning, those Jungian archetypes that we all share, that show that it's coded in us to give our lives that direction and that purpose, and to call us to be virtuous, better people. Your simplistic characterization of Christians is more a statement about your own ignorance than it is about Christians.
That's the conversation we're having when we're talking about ideological religions.
That was a thing of beauty, by the way.
Well, thanks.
That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, I told you he was a cook.
What's what it is. I mean, and people think, well, you're an atheist, you're an asshole, what do you believe in? I had a guy yell at me at a comedy club once because I did this bit about Scientology. I did this bit about Scientology, about watching a Scientology documentary with my mom, who made me go to Catholic school, and how my mom thinks Scientology is ridiculous. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Exactly.
And this guy like, yo, what do you believe in? Well, what do you believe in? Like, what, do I have to believe in something?
Right.
Do I have to believe? I believe in everything that's been proven. I believe that this is made out of wood. And
Prove to me that your mother loves you. Does your mother love you, Joe? Prove to me what is the experience of the color yellow. Prove to me what the love of your own children, is to you, or what the significance of your own children's lives are to you. The reality is there are many things that we know to be true that are unprovable. They're unevidential. And that is also true in something as logical and as rational as mathematics. It has been long since established in the world of mathematics that there are true statements that are unprovable, but they're still true. And that's a truth of mathematics. And that is the most logical language that we have to speak about the world. It's also the very language of the scientific world that you're talking about. And at the heart of mathematics, we accept that we have true statements we can't prove and will never be able to prove. And that's already been established. So it isn't the case, Joe, that you only need to believe in the things that can be proved, because the reality is there are many things that we can and should believe in that are outside of mathematical or empirical proof, but they're no less true. Belief in God is much more akin to, and I say this to all the Joe Rogan fans and all the atheists that might watch this, because Joe Rogan's an atheist, so maybe he's got lots of atheist fans, I don't know. But there's a better understanding of what it is to believe in God is the same kind of decision that you make when you choose to marry someone. You choose to marry someone at like 28 or 27 or whenever, with the idea that this is a decision, a commitment for the rest of your life, or at least those of us still working within a Christian paradigm do. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know if the person that you're going to marry is the same person that they are. You assume that they're not going to be, but you don't know if they're going to be the same person in 20 years' time that they are when you marry them. But the commitment that you make is not based on the things that you can see. It's an act of faith. It's to believe in the things that you cannot see and to walk forward in trust. And that is what we Christians openly acknowledge. It is to walk with God in this way. And just like in mathematics, there are things that there are true statements that can't be proven, and just and mathematics is the language of science. And just as science has clearly limits by which it cannot speak into a whole world of things that we know to be real, like meaning is real, and science doesn't speak into the world of meaning or values, then it doesn't mean that they're any less real. And so it is with God. So I'm sorry, Joe, if you are actually just being an empirical materialist, then I would openly say to you that you're kidding yourself, because I bet you do love your mother, and I bet you do love your children, and I bet you there is no way you can empirically prove that. So you are living your life by narratives and motifs that are outside of the realm of proof. Certainly the kind of proof that you're talking about.
When I'm proven wrong,
Right.
I just proved you wrong.
Danger Mike.
Yeah,
That's back to the jujitsu thing again.
yeah.
But when you also think about it, what an unbelievable arrogance to think that
That was the most ironic statement of this entire video.
you know the will of the creator of the universe. You know what he wants you to do. You know where he wants you to put your genitals. I mean, like you said, in philosophy, it's called the problem of induction, or looking at the past resembling the past. And we will look back. There's absolutely no question in my mind that you're correct. And we will say,
I'm sure he's a cook.
wow, you believe this? How could we possibly have believed this? But what's interesting to me is we know that will happen.
Do we? Do we? Who was it? Was it? I want to say Fukushima, but I'm probably mispronouncing the name, and I might have even got the wrong name. Who wrote a book called "The End of History"? And this idea that we've reached the end of history. This is the kind of gibberish that's being parroted here. This idea that there is some end of history that we're going to reach, where we will have learnt so much to throw off these Iron Age mythologies. What arrogance on the part of people that don't even claim divine revelation to know. They're falling into the trap of historicism. And I would encourage people to read C.S. Lewis's essay on historicism. It's the same kind of the mindset that governed the Nazis and the communists, that history was marching forward to a particular destination. It's based on Hegelian dialectic. And it is an echo of a Christian paradigm, because obviously Christians have a view of the end of history. But Christians believe in revelation. And, if there is a God and God seeks to speak to us, then it's logical that God can reveal his will to us. And we believe that God has done that. Now, I'll debate with anyone, including you, Joe, about whether God exists. But the point is that to simply assume that there can be no revelation before you have demonstrated with good reasons why there isn't a God, then you're just falling into the trap that you've laid for yourself. You're accusing all of these people of being arrogant, but your comments and your sort of hick jokes about Southern Christians in the United States, who are my brothers and sisters, just demonstrates your own arrogance, really.
We know that will happen, and it's an opportunity for us to reflect and say, wow, are we being arrogant?
Why do we know? Sorry, Cook, can you tell us?
Right now? Are we thinking we know things? Are we pretending to know things when we don't know them? And I think that...
You mean like Joe did when he talked about Constantine and the New Testament and just about everything that he said in this video?
A lot of that God talk is a type of arrogance. I think it's a type of people, I don't know, wanting to assert how moral they are so they reap advantages.
Maybe virtue signaling about where to stick your genitalia. As that was a reference, obviously, to Christians' positions about marriage and sexuality. Virtue signaling, I think, is the modern atheist equivalent. And so being without God hasn't exactly freed you from that now, has it?
President, or I mean, I think it's a very complicated social and even political problem, but it's also a type of arrogance.
Literally, I'm sure this guy's a cook.
It is definitely a type of arrogance, and it's also a way that people establish the moral high ground.
Yeah,
they establish a dominant social position over you.
So let's just think about this, because he's trying to imply that the logic of these kinds of catchphrases, because that's all that this guy is just a collection of catchphrases, is that there is no moral high ground. So is he saying that culturally female genital mutilation is equal and equally valid to cultures that don't have female genital mutilation? Is he saying that cultures that have slavery are equal to cultures that don't have slavery? Is he saying that cultures that permit wife beating are equal to cultures that don't permit wife beating? Is he saying that cultures that practice apartheid systems are based upon race or religion are equal to those cultures that don't practice apartheid systems based upon race or religion? Is he saying cultures that denigrate the dignity of women to being secondary legal citizens is equal to those cultures that don't and treat them as equally? Because clearly there is a moral high ground. It is better, and I will debate it with anyone, that we shouldn't have slaves. I mean, are you honestly trying to suggest, Joe, that there isn't a moral high ground on these questions? Or are you trying to say that it's all relative? Because the thing is, if you say that we shouldn't have slaves, if you say that we should not on X, Y, or Z, then you've established a moral high ground. One would assume that, based on the kind of comments you made in this video, that you would say we should not tell people what to do with their sex lives. Well, I'm sorry, haven't you just established a moral high ground? I mean, and this is the kind of simplistic, relativistic collapse of progressive thinkers. I know he's not a thinker, but it's not as clear as it's not as simple as the paragons of virtue of the YouTube progressive world would simply like to suggest with their catchphrases, and all the sheeple are going, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, think for a second. Joe Rogan is talking claptrap.
And people love to do that. They love to do that with their pious attitude. What they're doing,
like you just did,
is by them accepting these religious tenets, they are somehow superior to you.
There we go. Okay.
People with ADHD.
We don't want that no more. So there you go, guys. That is my. I want to hold on. Let's hopefully not destroy this. There we go. So that's my response to Joe Rogan. A guy who clearly got punched on the head too much and then walked out the ring, did a couple of interviews and thought he was a genius. He's not. If you're a Joe Rogan fan, you need to do yourself the favor of not sheepishly following his every comment and commentary as if it's a fact. He's talked a load of crap there. I've tried my best to point you in some directions to maybe think through some of the issues that he's made. And if on the off chance Joe Rogan would like the right of reply, I will give the right of reply. I would be happy for him to come on and to explain to me which emperor and which bishop invented the New Testament and how it was written hundreds of years after Jesus's life, and how that there are no moral high grounds, and whether there is a God. So, big in the ring. It's easy to come out with comments when the person across from the table to you is a cook who's just repeating anything you're saying. And if the cook would like to reply, he's more than welcome. I'll debate with him as well. But if you're a Joe Rogan fan, you owe it to yourself to get a better lead. Don't be a sheeple. Don't follow that guy on his every comment. He has badmouthed the Christian faith because of his own arrogance and his own ignorance. And it will literally, on any of those statements, not the question about God, obviously, but the question about how the New Testament came to be and how old the New Testament is, etc. It would take you only an hour's worth of research to realize that Joe Rogan is speaking poppycock. And, it will only take you 10 minutes worth of thinking to realize that there is such a thing as a moral high ground. These things do exist. Okay. God bless.